Hi, this is Kingston for Lightspeed Saber League, the world's fastest light-based fencing, and I am now back from Lightspeed Returns, and hopefully all of you are back safely as well. We're about a week out from the event, and I've actually recorded this a couple different times because I wanted to make sure that I say it in the right way. And I just want to say that overall, Lightspeed Returns went very, very well. There were some great fights out there. We've got 2 new champions, and we had more people than last year, many more events. And actually, some of this may have contributed to some of the, honestly, some of the problems that we had. So I wanted to talk about some of those things, some of the ways that we responded, and some of our plans going in the future for making things better. So I guess the topic of the day is the power levels and our response to them during the tournament. We've generally been spoiled in Lightspeed. We have the Lightspeed Blade, which means that in general, people can swing pretty darn hard, and the risk of serious injury for most people is pretty low. The last time we had a serious injury before this was 2018, when we didn't know that there were gloves that didn't protect the inner wrist here. So when somebody received some fractures on their inner wrist, we added the requirement to have wrist protection on the inside here. And since then, till then and now, there wasn't any serious injuries. Now, I did notice that on Friday night, after the day's events, there were quite a lot of power level issues, and there was at least one injury that could be serious. You know, we had to enact some serious measures to try to bring things back under control. Why were power levels higher than normal? I'm not entirely sure. It could be that we were doing many more competitions than normal within a single day, because we did a lot more this year than we did last year. It could be that the competition level is higher. It could be that the stakes are higher. I really don't know. It's really hard to say. I hope that some of those things are the reason, other than just some natural progression or some kind of animosity. Anyway, that night, I, myself, and other officers, we gathered to discuss what to do, because I knew that we were going to have a lot of people going by, and I didn't want them to see, you know, a big ugly mess, that people were getting injured. I didn't want them seeing something really brutal, and I don't want to see that either. It's not supposed to be like that. And so we ultimately came up with the decision that we needed to make the floor hits universal, the ban on floor hits, right? So if you're not familiar with us, that means that when you're swinging, if there's enough momentum in your swing for the blade to hit the ground, then there's too much force and you are not in control of your blade. Now, of course, it is possible to hit the floor without a lot of force, but when the rules are stated plainly and we've removed the warnings and increased the penalties, you know, you should be in control of what you're doing, right? And if after all that you still are not, you're still hitting the floor on your swings, then you're not in control, right? The problem, of course, is that it is very possible to swing hard without hitting the floor by merely swinging horizontally or upward, things like that. And so it's certainly not a perfect rule, and I know that it negatively affected some people out there, and it's certainly not my intention, especially if you were in control but for some circumstance still caused you to hit the ground, or if you hit the ground in a manner that was not an attack and the referees may have misinterpreted your actions, right? Anyway, I'm not here to blame you or anything like that. Those were actions put in place that nobody was prepared for, this as I understand, and that was the choice that was made in order to try to bring the power levels down, and I think for the most part it did help. But of course it's not your fault to have had to deal with something that you weren't prepared to deal with, okay? That is my fault, okay? So if you were negatively affected by that, those were the decisions that were made, and I do apologize for any regrettable repercussions from that. Or at the very least, you are not to blame, okay? That's ultimately the buck stops with me. Now, it is certainly not a perfect matter, but it is objective. People often misunderstand how difficult it can be to referee power levels. When you're bringing different clubs together fencers who've never met before, different clubs have different cultures, you know, and you know, they have different ideas of what too much power is, and they're often comfortable with their own teammates' power levels. but they're not comfortable with other teams' power levels. So when you are trying to referee something that is objective, biases come into play. And these are unconscious biases, okay? I don't think anyone there is intentionally trying to screw with anyone, okay? But biases affect everyone whether you like it or not, and even if you deny it, everyone has biases. And power level, even beyond that, is still notoriously difficult to referee. How fast is this swing going? Well, who can actually measure that and measure it objectively on this side of the fence or that side of the fence? You could go by sound, but powerful hits make different volumes of sound depending on what they're hitting, right? They sound very loud on armored areas like the mask, and if you're wearing a hard shell armor, it'll sound very, very loud even though it's not. And when hitting the body or softer armor, it'll be softer, even though it might be a stronger hit. You might listen for a swoosh through the air, right? But you mostly hear swooshes when the attack misses, not when it hits something, right? So those sounds are different. And that's why it can be very difficult to referee power levels. And refereeing power levels is a very dangerous game. This may surprise you, but Lightspeed Saber League has lost way, way, way more people to over-enforcement or over-sensitivity of power levels than we have lost to under-enforcement or under-sensitivity of power levels. I can only think of one person that I know of who quit because of power levels being too high. But I know many people, multiple teams, in fact, that used to be part of the league that left because they felt they weren't being treated fairly. Because power levels, again, are subjective, hard to referee, hard to do consistently, and hard to do without bias, okay? Even if you are unbiased, you have to prove that you're unbiased. And that's a very difficult thing to do, okay? Anyone can feel that you're being unfair to them, and there's no way to prove that you're not. So that's part of why it's so difficult, and that's part of why we've generally tried to avoid enforcing power levels, because it's just so difficult. That being said, it's not that we don't, okay, we have, okay? But when power levels slowly start to ramp up and ramp up and ramp up, it's hard to know at what point it started to cross the line. This creates ambiguity, and it creates paralysis. So what we need are objective measures, or at least objective guidelines that referees can use to help them make decisions. And it's clear that striking the floor is one way to do it, okay, but it's certainly inadequate. It's certainly not enough. And so what's going to happen here is that we are going to start looking at how we can objectively measure power levels, or create some objective guidelines that can help referees enforce power levels, because some of what you saw at Lightspeed Returns is not what Lightspeed Saber fencing is supposed to be. It should be an artful game. It should be strategic. It should be technical, tactical. It should rely on speed and technique and strategy and skill, and not so much on force levels. It certainly should not be about intimidating your opponent with a lot of force. Okay, much of what I saw was amazing, but also much of what I saw was not amazing. As has been said by one of my officers, as long as power levels continue to win, then power levels will continue to stay, which is absolutely right. And so it is now time that we establish some solid guidelines for dealing with this stuff, and also making sure that every base knows what those guidelines are, so that when they arrive at Lightspeed Madness next year in 2024, they will be prepared and they won't feel that they're being treated unfairly. So that is already happening right now. The last thing I want to say before I go into my thank yous for everyone for helping make Lightspeed Returns possible is to remind you that, and I'm kind of talking to the competitors here, this is your league as well, okay? It's not on paper, of course, okay? But legally, the league is mine and I'm the sole owner. But some years back, I already made the decision that I had to give up power to other people, you know? Because I can't do it all by myself. And I believe firmly that if you want people to do a good job, they have to have some ownership in it. If for no other reason than to accept the blame when things go bad, okay? So what that means, though, is that it's not entirely mine anymore, okay? And that means that if you care about it, then If you want changes, then it has to be part of yours. It has to be partly yours too, and it is. So a lot of people misunderstand this, but I try to be an open book as much as possible. There are very few things in Lightspeed that I am dogmatically set with, that I won't change. It doesn't mean that I'll change it easily, okay, but I'm always willing to listen, okay. It doesn't mean that I'll do what you ask right away. It doesn't mean that you're right either. Okay. Everyone can be wrong, even myself, and sometimes we need to hear it a few times, okay? So don't be afraid to talk to me or another officer. That is completely fine. Now, I have a lot of people to thank for Lightspeed returns, so I'm just going to go ahead and go through this list. In no particular order.
I'd like to thank Laura Carnes. Very, very, very grateful to have her. She really helped bolster our women's division. And she brought her expertise in longsword. To Tony Zaldua, you are a genius. Your construction of the Lightspeed Saber crossguard attachment made Laura's Ren Saber workshop possible. Thank you also for being such a great champion, actually, and I would say our first real champion, in fact, because you proved that success can come without power. Will, thank you for your passion and your loyalty and your great generosity. Every other tournament and every national tournament, you donate prizes. I know that you don't have a car. You still Uber everywhere anyway, even to tournaments that are really far for you. Jose, I appreciate your passion and your loyalty to Lightspeed. You're actually my favorite referee. It's a rare treat when the referee is more entertaining than the fencers themselves. So, Steve Perez, thank you for your kind words and your loyalty to Lightspeed Saber. Very recently, having some very interesting conversations with you. You know, Lightspeed being a business, I often have to restrain myself in talking about politics and my beliefs and my values. But you're someone who wears your heart on your sleeve, it seems. And there's a time for that, and I appreciate our opportunity to have a talk and talk about things I don't normally get to talk about. I'd like to thank Gary and V Ripper. You two have always been so generous to us. I asked for some prizes, and you just gave them to me because of your trust in us, and we trust you. Speaking of which, let me thank Van O'Brien over at Kyber Cave, and Brad for supplying us with some great prizes and wanting to talk to us on your show. I respect the guts to run the show that you do. You know, like I said before, there's things I can't talk about. You guys just go right into it, okay? So you should check out Kyber Cave. Kevin Fournier over at Klamath Falls, based in Saber Academy. You only did one event, I think. But you brought Annihilation with you. You created a whole new format. People seem to have loved it. I also want to thank you for being the voice of reason during the late night discussion. I was ready to throw out the hammer of God, and you stayed the hand. I think that was very shrewd. So thank you very much, Kevin. Chris Stather, thank you for reffing and managing the women's division with your amazing software, which is gonna make things so much easier and faster for Lightspeed going forward. Also, being such a great tryout coach. I know that any kids that had you as a coach, I know that they absolutely loved you, so it was great. Kat Larange, you did such a wonderful workshop for us, and I know that people really enjoyed it, and I know that people really needed it too. I also appreciate you making sure to study the manuals. That is very, very helpful, knowing that people know that information. It allows me to make sure that I can trust certain people, you know, and I trust you. A reliable counterattacker, okay? I can always rely on you to score some counterattacks. And in a similar vein, Russ, thank you for your wisdom. There were moments at the event where I just wasn't sure what to do, asked someone to find you, and you had just the right answer for us, and so I thank you for that. I also thank you for showing people how diet is done, not just in the workshop, but competing in it as well, and doing great in it. Thank you for your great workshops, always incredibly thoughtful and thought-provoking. Minwin, you were such a diligent scorekeeper, and that was so kind of you to do, especially when you were there as a patron. And thank you for helping us out with the beginner tryouts. You cleaned up gear, you welcomed new people, and you assigned them to coaches and boxes. It was so kind for you to do that, and I hope that it was a good learning experience for you. Sean Friedman from Lightspeed Saber Long Island, you also were a scorekeeper for us, and you also did tryouts for us. I saw you coaching some younglings. I think that was awesome. Thanks for letting me crash in your room on the last day. And I know that you've been generally keeping up with your ref exams as well, so thank you, Sean. Mr. Andre Gonzalez, thank you for being a loyal officer and always offering your opinions and advice. I've relied on you to make tough decisions. I've relied on you to lead at times and to represent us, and you know, you've always been the right officer for that, so thank you. Brian I appreciate you coming all the way out from Canada and turning our national term into an international, or shall I say, North American tournament, actually. And I saw you acting as a referee during tryouts, and I know that you enjoyed it. So, and I thank you for being such a fun and bombastic referee. That was really cool. And I also want to thank you for standing up for trans people. You know, I knew I would take some flack and things like that and criticism. It's always okay if it's coming from the right place, you know, so thank you for doing that. John Cupits from Klamath, thank you for coming out here, acting as ref, helping us during tryouts, and mostly for supporting your son Josiah. Becca, one of my members here, thank you for your great passion and loyalty to Lightspeed Saber. I know that you care about the sport, I know that you care about the team, and I love those things about you. Thank you for trying so hard to be a great referee, always making sure to study everything, and there are even things that you push harder than I do. Mr. Sean Holtzman, another loyal member, a loyal officer who's been with us for years. You know, he had a choice of conventions to go to. I told Sean, I really kind of need you at this one, you know, I need your experience, and he put everything down to make sure to fulfill his position as senior officer. And I want to thank you also for being such a passionate advocate for the safety of our members. I wanted to thank our Lightspeed parents. Thank you, Sheila Watson, for helping us out with the tryouts. You learned the reffing and some of the point systems. We haven't had a good body of parents in a while since our gym shut down, but it's really great to have the help of parents, you know, and thank you for supporting Emily and our sport. It's really appreciated. Jessica, thank you for supporting Asher. Thank you for supporting our sport. And I know that you're helping here and there and stuff like that. And, you know, thank you for being such a great Saber model, actually. You know, it really helped out our sponsors, so thank you for doing that. Rachel, thanks for being Lightspeed's mom. You ran our admin table and sold stuff for me. I appreciate that very much. John Mullins. Man, there would not be Lightspeed Returns without John Mullins, okay? Because John did a lot of the prep work. He did the rosters. He did the scheduling. Even when I did not pay attention to it and accidentally ignored it. Sorry about that, John. It's still key that we had something in place, okay? Dinah, who has been working with me every week, for hours every week. Thanks for designing our badges. Thanks for maintaining our website. Thank you for doing things on your own time once in a while, just because you care. You made our postcards and really helped to get the word out. As we speak, she's preparing Lightspeed Menace for the next year, so look forward to that. I only have one more page left. Ali, you sent me a message. I appreciate the message. There's something that happens when you create something that people participate in. When people come to participate in it and they put all their effort and their passion and their emotion into it, you know, win or lose, I think it's a great honor. It gives you the satisfaction of knowing that you've done something that people really care about. I think you have the heart of a champion, and I know that you're going to get there. To my partner, Emily, it was a pleasure to work with you, and I hope that you'll take some of what we practiced home with you. I knew that I wanted to work with you when I saw all your counterattacks over in Rockville and Virginia, and it was a pleasure to see you scoring the most counterattacks in the women's division. But learn to hang back, please, okay? Let me thank the members of Lightspeed Saber Irvine who also came. Preston, Monica, Ronan, thanks for representing Irvine. Also members who couldn't come, Phoebe and Patricia. Phoebe, thank you for being my fencing partner, and thank you for being my friend. Patricia, sweetheart, thanks for all your advice and wisdom and being such a wonderful sounding board. So thanks, baby, and I love you. Finally, I would like to thank Rob Chan and Shar Carter, our new national champions. I want to thank you for ushering us into this new era and bringing a whole new set of strategies and tactics and techniques that are going to change the game. I'm looking forward to seeing what you both do from here. Most of all, though, I'm looking forward to seeing how the league adapts. Good luck to both of you for the rest of the year. Let's see if you can hang on to it in 2024, okay? That's it. Kingso out.
Red Rise clean. 3 points red. We are at 3-0. Make ready. Fight! Break. Red Rise clean. 3 points red. We are at